That is a very nice fish. We love this fish. We have a mystery fish. It's truly incredible. Thank you for this fish, Mystery. Thank you. We love it. Shout out to Mystery with the mystery fish.
Oh, you are recording.
I am, because this will be a great cold open, so... All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast, coming live to you from FWA. Yeah! We That's okay. We weren't on the schedule, but that wasn't going to keep us down. We were going to have a podcast anyways. So thanks, but no thanks, FWA. We'll ignore your schedule and still have one. No, we love them. We love them. Yeah, we'll keep positive. We have a very intimate audience with us here today. Very pleased to have them, including Mystery with their fish. We do love that. And we have a very special guest here to chat with us today, going by the name of Hornbuckle. So would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Triangle or Narrow Professor Scritch Zach. Zaleppo.
Thank you.
Hornbuckle.
Yes.
Transformation artist.
Yes.
You all know me.
We do.
I know most of you, and I'm going to know more of you.
Season 2, episode 14, if you want
Episode
the lore. 14. Okay? I remember.
That was me.
It was the real OG.
That's right. You learn a little bit about my backstory and learn a little bit about yours, and it was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah. I'm really happy to have you here. And as always, I have to put in my little plug before we start. So if you like the content that we make, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. I'm sure many people actually go into their Apple or whatever and skip this part, but it is important. We do love everyone who subscribes to the Patreon. And if you do, you can get invited to live recordings like this one at your local cons. So, give it up for all of our Patreons here. We do appreciate that.
Than 15 seconds. We're going to take 15.1 seconds. You're still going to hear this.
Yeah.
Your $10 can give you.
Exactly. So really excited to have y'all here. And as always, you can join our Patreon and help support us. It does help keep us going. It helps pay my bills. So we love that. We do love that. So I'm really excited to have you here today, Hornbuckle. I know that we have a few topics on the agenda, but to kind of start it off, I'm curious as to what your experience has been like so far at FWA. Have you been enjoying it? I know you've been vending, so there's been a lot going on your end.
FWA 2023 is the best convention. If you're not here, I am so sorry. You're missing a incredible con experience. Don't cry. Just come to the next one. Make it happen. Come meet all of us. Come have a big, fun party talking about TF. And it's been great. It's really been great. Everyone's been wonderful. You feel the love here, and this is what I've been needing. So I appreciate being here. All of you being here.
And I know that one of the things you've been vending, you have this comic out with Cine Mini, which I'm very excited to talk about because, I think we kind of touch on this every so often in various different ways in some of the episodes, but sometimes it's really interesting to have kind of a slightly malevolent entity causing your transformations. And I feel like Cine Mini really fits into that. So I was curious to get a little bit of background as to what kind of was the genesis of the character and what kind of drew you towards making TF content with them as kind of the impetus for changes.
I'm too fucking nice. So I can't be the one to initiate some, I might not want this TF. I can't, but I really needed an outlet and a character who could be that force of chaos, mischievousness that I just am not as much as I try to be. I am too nice. So Cine Mini came because we as in my partner Jamie and I, were talking about cinnamon. And so we're saying cinnamon, Mini, and I was like, Cine Mini just sounds like a great name for an agent of chaos. And I love hamsters and small creatures and bears, and I was like, pink. So this vision of Cine Mini, the pink ham bear, who wears a little bow tie and has one of those like creepy stares of like 1950s era, Twilight Zone. Yeah. So they go they're them because they can embody feminine and masculine, but them themselves as their little ham bears is not gendered. They are just a little agent of chaos.
Chaos doesn't have a gender.
Exactly, and so they can morph into the role that they need to be, and usually in the end the twist is that the person does enjoy it, or it's well deserved that this person gets it, because again, I am just too nice. I can't go hardcore.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And, knowing you are a very nice person. So I understand why you might need like another character as an outlet for that. And, I think what's really interesting about the character, and, you've kind of alluded to this already, but the Twilight Zone element really comes into play with them of, someone either getting what they deserve or alternatively someone asking for something and getting a little bit too much. The monkey paw curls a little bit too much and they get something they weren't anticipating. One of the comics I know that you've worked on with them already was about seeing someone smile and them turning into a hyena. I guess I was curious as to what kind of drew you towards that kind of like hyena TF, because it was kind of like the first like introduction to the character, at least to the people on your Patreon.
I'm a 90s kid, and I grew up with The Lion King. And those are some of the best damn hyena designs ever to this day. Now, my hyena doesn't look exactly like that, but that's what I had in mind. It was inspired by them and always will be. Shenzi, I love you. You're my girl. Yeah. Oh, my God, so much. Whoopi Goldberg, I love you. And the person who is being transformed by Cindy Minnie, his name is Mr. Rose, and he appeared in a comic I made called Drafted. He was the first victim, and it was all about a criminal to be rehabilitated via hard work as another creature. But it's not meant to be cruel. It's meant to be, let's get a different perspective, and then you can transform back into a human. And I think that's genius. I think that would be great if transformation could happen. All right, inmates, let's see what you like being a swan. Let's see how that happens. You hamster, you're gonna feel the wrath of a 3-year-old. Don't give 3-year-olds hamsters. And so I picked Mr. Rose because he had been that person, and I play a small role where I give him the Cindy Minnie figurine that introduces the transformation. Now, Mr. Rose didn't do anything. I am just fucking with him. Okay, I'm just because I was like, I just need a character that I've already made, and just to try this because it was something new, and I want to make more of him featuring Cindy Minnie in my little zines. So there'll be more of the mischievousness. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that, you're kind of using this character as an outlet for, I guess, feelings that you feel like you can't express yourself because you're too nice. And, again, as we've mentioned, like, you're kind of leaning on another established character for being the transformation subject. So I guess my question is more around the kind of construct of these two having that kind of dynamic of like someone who's kind of inflicting TF on someone in kind of a maybe mean way, and then another person being the subject. Do you feel like you identify with both of them?
How dare you? The look that Zaleppo has just given me was, I can't even go, like, it was the smuggest but most endearing face.
That's me, baby.
I love it, and I love you. Thank you. To take the easy way out, I'll just say yes.
Fair. I appreciate the quiet yes. The quiet yes. I feel like it said more than anything else you could have said, so I appreciate that. One thing I've always enjoyed about TF in particular is that kind of a dynamic of like someone that's like maybe kind of malevolent, but also like not benevolent, but like giving out kind of like just desserts. And, I feel like that's kind of fallen a little bit out of like taste, for lack of a better term, to some degree lately in like the TF scene. Like obviously I love my empowering TFs. I love my like happy TFs. I get them all the time. Like, don't get me wrong, but I do like the TFs that have a little twinge of like a just dessert. And I feel like to some degree that is less prevalent these days. And I know I've talked about this with other folks on the podcast before, but I was curious to kind of get your take as to if you've kind of seen that in a similar way or if you feel differently.
No, I've seen it, and I've seen myself lean that way too, because there's this movement of more empowering TFs, which is good. We don't not want that. That's really awesome. But then there's the darker side of people being like, oh, I'm not allowed to have dark thoughts. And it's like, you are allowed to have dark thoughts. And I am saying that because I need to remind myself that too. And dark, I mean, people can go super dark and people can just like be like, a little tiny dark. And I say I'm a little tiny dark, and I'm more hesitant to share that, which is why I needed the Atlas and Mini, because it fascinates us, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's no one, it's consensual because I'm the one in charge of these characters. I'm not going to put them through something dreadful, and I'm not bashing anybody who does that kind of TF. But for myself, getting just desserts or getting something you weren't expected or a little bit of bullying, I'm like, it's fine. It's you want to experience it. Do I want to be bullied a little bit? I do, but I don't. But here I can draw it. Do I want to bully somebody? Yeah, but not really, so I'll draw it. I'm not really going to do that in real life, but let's just express these feelings that we have. They get out frustrations in our daily life, or they express, things that we can't actually physically express because we can't physically TF. So let's draw some more of that. But I have seen it. It's true. I have seen the little drop off. So hopefully we can bring that back.
And I love that you've been saying all of this as you're wearing a pin that says "I'm a bully." I really do love that. And I know it's towards people who want to be bullied, but I do appreciate that you're wearing it.
On demand.
On demand, yeah. That's what it should be. On demand, yeah. If you want it, I can give it to you. Yeah. So I guess I'm also curious, one thing I've noticed about folks who tend to explore the more darker side, I'm putting this in quotations, you can't see it, but the darker side, I've noticed that does tend to map towards people who identify more or less as TF tops. And I know that we've kind of talked about that before. Do you feel like you would be interested in exploring those kinds of changes if you yourself were the subject, or do you only find an interest in that when you might be the person who is inflicting it either directly or indirectly through another character?
The second one. I was about to hand it back to Zil. No, I'm very protective of myself, and I always have been. And people have been so kind to want to offer to pay me to draw myself transforming, and I'm like, I can't, because I am working so hard on myself. I cannot do my true self in that. So the avatars that I have is what lets me express that side. Being myself is too personal. And then it's the opposite for some people. Some people, I have drawn them for years, and they are themselves TFing, and that's beautiful. So there's many empowering ways I find to be empowered through avatars that I can play with and be different roles.
No, I think that makes sense. And, one thing that I'll say is I obviously explore it in a different way, but one thing I think that's really wonderful about TF is that, be it, TF top, bottom, whatever you want to call it, there's so many different ways to engage with the topic and to use, I think, avatars as a way to explore some of those different things that you don't want to explore, with your own personal avatar, I think is a really beautiful way to explore, the different facets of transformation. So then I guess my other question would be, obviously Cinemini has a very Twilight Zone flavored kind of vibe to them. Were you kind of drawn to the Twilight Zone growing up, or where did that kind of inspiration or vibe come from?
The Twilight Zone scared the shit out of me. I did not like it. I was confused and terrified. But isn't that those things that just get you in childhood that make you come back and want to be like, what was it that scared me, and can I face it? And so me, Mr. Nice Guy, is like, well, here's this cute little ham bear. My own little flavor of the Twilight Zone. That's where it stemmed from, though. I was inspired, but I can't say I've seen all the Twilight Zones. I'm not a Twilight Zone buff, but I remember seeing it, it's scaring me, and now I can address it in adulthood and be like, what can I make of this that can be more empowering? So my own little character, a la Twilight Zone.
I know you said you weren't a buff of it, but are there any particular TFE episodes that stand out to you, at least in your memory?
Sadly, there's this one episode where a kid can just do things with, I think it's a boy, doesn't matter, but this kid like can do things with their mind, and there's I don't even remember how it ends, but there's this moment where I think he turns like an adult into a Jack-in-the-Box. And you see the shadow of the Jack-in-the-Box. You don't see I think you just see the shadow. And I was like, that kid just turned that person into a Jack-in-the-Box. I am going to go have nightmares for the next week.
Like good nightmares.
No. Bad nightmares. But the fact that it moved me so much that I still remember it to this day. I mean, it has this, it did move me for better or for worse. I haven't forgotten.
Aren't we all, though? Jack in the boxes.
Aren't we all?
Jack in the Boxes. It's true. On this blessed day. It's funny you mentioned that one. I haven't seen that particular episode, but now I want to go see it because I'm like, that sounds hot to me. But I mean, whatever. Your mileage may vary.
It's as a kid, you're just like, I have no concept of any of this is terrifying. But now as an adult, you're like, well, maybe this could be useful for something.
And we love that. Yeah, I think that the Twilight Zone in particular had a really big impact on the kind of quote-unquote kind of meaner TFs because there are so many of them. And, maybe this is an artifact of being, like, older folks in the TF community, but, like, I feel its influence in a lot of different TF pieces. And as we've kind of trended towards like moving away from the kind of like darker aspects, I feel like that influence has waned a little bit. So maybe this isn't like a conscious thing, but do you kind of see bringing like City Mini and those kinds of tropes in as a way to kind of revive those themes, or is kind of like the Twilight Zone-esque stuff still like wholly separate from what you're trying to do?
Just repeat the question.
Simplify, yeah. Basically what I'm asking is, I feel like Twilight Zone's influence has waned over time. Do you feel like what you're doing is helping to bring it back a little bit, or is it something completely different?
That wasn't my intention. It really purely was, how can I express different sides of myself safely, and if I contribute to bringing back some darker TF, And okay, you have to understand, when I say darker, this is the scale when I say darker. I'm sugar, okay? And I'm just talking about baking some bread. Like, that's how dark I'm gonna go, okay? But because some white bread I am just baking. It doesn't get to make some rye bread. I don't know. Yeah. I do love rye bread, and that's dark. So pumpernickel. Oh, now we're talking about bread, and now I'm hungry. And nope. Why isn't Triangle bread?
I don't want to be bread.
Triangle doesn't want to be bread, so don't anyone TF Triangle into bread. Miss Cindy Minnie's gonna.
Being bread is fine, actually.
Right? You get to be soft and hard, nice, crunchy crust, and oh yeah, you get the cool designs on top of it. If you're like a nice round bread, slice you up, slather some PB&J, butter, hummus. What was the question?
Does yeast make good parents?
Does yeast? They're raised.
Oh my god.
Because they're raising you.
That was Onera. No. Professor Squitch just said, you're too young to make dad jokes, and you're never too young to make dad jokes.
Listen, daddy is a state of mind, okay? It's not an age, okay? Take it from me.
Yes. That's all. That was my dark scale. No, my dark scale. I mean, because I've seen some TF that I'm not into, and again, I'm not bashing it, but because I can't go dark because I don't know, it scares me. It's not where I need to go. I think I've had enough darkness literally in my life that I'm like, no, I'm good. We're basically going to bake some bread.
Honestly, I love this for you. I am definitely the other direction of like, I've had lots of darkness, but let's get some more. But, thank you. It's definitely your mileage may vary kind of thing. But yeah, I think just in general, and I think this is also something I've noticed, like being at the convention itself, like it's so nice to see folks really like expressing themselves and really coming into themselves. And, sometimes coming into yourself also includes like exploring the dark sides, but sometimes it doesn't. And one thing I think that's really interesting just about having that kind of avatar that you've introduced is you're basically introducing a way to have that duality, almost like that dialectic thinking of, like I can be myself. I can be very positive. I can be in this space and experience myself, express myself. And then I can also have this other side that, it's another character. It's not really me, but like I can explore some ideas that maybe I wouldn't otherwise,
No, exactly. That's exactly why it's there. I've put myself on hold for too long, and I don't really have many OCs. I have my persona. That's about it. And I've constantly over the past 10 years tried to develop and make characters, and nothing stuck. And Cindy Mini, I'm like, there they are. That's one, which I hope will be of many OCs that will give me the outlet for different, ways I want to express myself.
So then I want to ask, obviously Cindy Mini is a part of the Patreon that you're running right now and kind of the content that you're producing. I have noticed that you are also producing kind of like Twilight Zone-y stuff that doesn't necessarily involve Cindy Mini, but is a part of the Patreon. So how do you feel like those two things tie into each other?
How Cindy Mini and the other things that don't involve Cindy Mini tie into each other. I don't know if there is. I think it's just the path I am on, and so there's gonna be a lot of similarities, and it will evolve and grow as I go along. Hopefully, with the help of my patrons, who I am so grateful for.
No, that's totally fair. Not everything has to have a grand theory. I just ask the questions, okay? But So obviously, you've been vending at FWA here, and part of the process of vending includes like creating physical merch, and you have plenty of TF physical merch, and I know we talked about this last season with Shadow Fox, but I was curious to hear kind of the thought process behind how you settled on things you're going to make, and then how you kind of went about like making them, like what was the process and such.
A lot of the things I brought were developed through Patreon with my patrons who have asked their opinion through polls, what they'd like to see, what kind of TFs. I had a bunch of sticker designs, and I asked for the top 3 that they would want to see as a sticker at first. I got to do these in batches. Printing things is not simple, and it's not cheap, which is why as vendors you really got to pick and choose. You're going to have limited space, you're going to have limited funds. So I had to invest a lot into this, and I wanted to make sure I made things that even if they didn't sell at a FWA that I can then offer online. So the specifically TF stickers were because of my excellent patrons. The zine was more of my own idea, and it was more of me sharing with my patrons that this was happening, and I wanted to give them a discount when it first came out. So that's how I let them be involved with that. The print, it was one of my most popular prints. It's called Sorry Charlie, and it's a gang of werewolves. Again, this is another outlet forcing another guy into becoming a werewolf. And
very hot. Very hot.
I know, right? So far, one has sold, and I am surprised. So people need to get in on this hotness, okay? Sorry Charlie is like, get some. And then I've had these special limited edition sparkly holographic prints. They're large. I just haven't found a way to ship them properly. I'm working on it. It's been busy over this past half year. So it's nice to bring that stack here and offer it to people in person. And then again, I hope I can offer them online. And the TF booklet called Growing Pains was an amalgamation of mostly, I think most of the TFs in there are also patron funded and suggested. I had a long pause, I had a long hiatus because COVID just knocked me on my ass. But before that, I did ask people for like sketch suggestions and live sketching, and so like you'll see all that work from patron ideas in that sketchbook, and so I had to bring that. Trying to think, what else did I bring? Buttons. Zach helped me come up with some buttons. Zach Loop over there, so quiet.
Love you, Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach.
Who is also a fantastic artist and my table mate. Things like transforming into something more comfortable. I love you for that. And get queer, get comfortable. I think we kind of worked on that together. Yeah. And just fun little TF things like that. And then the buttons and stickers also have had for a while. and some of them are TFE. But yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. Please support your people, all your vendors. Buy, because we lug a bunch of stuff with us, and we do not want to take it all back, and it's all for you. So buy.
So I'm curious, obviously you're vending in the main vendor hall. What kind of reactions do you get sometimes from the folks who aren't necessarily into TF? Because, obviously all the TF people, they see you on the schedule and they're like, oh, I got to go to Hornbuckle's table. But, there's lots of people who come through the vendor halls. And I'm curious if you've had any interesting or unique interactions with like non-TF people who like come up to your table and they're like, oh, like, what is this? What's going on here? That kind of stuff.
Bless the people who don't know what TF is or just don't know. So I'm very personable, and so I tend to ask, or I say, look, all your TF needs, and they kind of stare blankly, and I'm like, they're not into TF. And I'll say, are you into transformation? And they're like, not really. And I'm like, well, that's okay. Yeah, you might develop something, like a new interest here. And they're like, and they nod and they walk away. So, bless them. It's okay. You don't have to be into it. And you're always welcome at the tables. And you're always welcome to ask questions. So, but then some other ones have been like, well, not in particular, but maybe werewolves. And I've shown them my werewolf stuff and they bought it. So, I think werewolves, for me personally, like I talked about in season 2, episode 14, that werewolves were my introduction into TF, and like that's my one true love. Original is like werewolves. I will always stop for werewolves. I should get a bumper sticker. Stops for werewolves. I will make that sticker. No one else steal it. It's my idea. Hornbuckle TM. Mine. Be available in a month. That is all. I don't know.
No, that's great. I really do feel like werewolves are like such a gateway drug to TF, and I do like love and appreciate them, and I just love werewolves in general. But I find it funny that that's kind of like the way to like introduce like quote unquote normies. It's like, so do you know werewolves? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, okay, what if you were interested in that? And they're like, I don't understand. And it's like, okay, that's fine. We've lost you already. That's fine. To which I'm like, come on, y'all are furries. Like, who wouldn't want a hot werewolf daddy or mommy? Like, come on, give me a break. Like, please, okay? Or themmy, like, I'm not going to discriminate. So, I guess then when you do have, obviously, folks who are interested in TF who come up and, like, obviously want to, like, start a conversation with you because you're very personable and, like, want to talk about your merch, do you have any that like stand out as like someone will be like, you know what, this one I saw it and it was just like I was really drawn to it, and like, this is the one that makes me keep coming back to your booth at conventions?
I do, and I'm so grateful for those folk who come up so eager to chat about it, and they'll see, oh, you have skunks, and that's the one they want, and they're so grateful. Skunks. Oh, you have raccoons. I love raccoons. That's what. The rabbit, my rabbit sticker, which is not specifically TF, it's more hypno, it's more Alice in Wonderland trippy. I'm surprised how many even TF people are like, oh, the white rabbit, and that has sold. And I love when people want to tell me their stories of why they're drawn to it, because that means a lot to me. That something I made resonated so deeply with somebody that they're willing to, put down some cash for it. I mean, thank you. Like, I work hard, and it's good to see that people appreciate it, but not just appreciate it, but resonate with it. Always so happy.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that now, because as I'm sitting here thinking about, like Alice in Wonderland is very much kind of a TF-y kind of story, and we might not think about it initially, but like there's a lot of TF that goes on in that story, isn't there?
Yes. The one that's jumping out in my mind, of course, is Alice herself, becoming very big and becoming very small. What other TF was there? I mean, the Cheshire Cat's got that mischievous kind of like... Yeah. I'm blanking, but it's worth another rewatch. And also, if you've ever seen any other variations of Alice in Wonderland besides the Disney one, that's some trippy stuff that you should check out.
Was there a Polish film? I can't remember.
It's
the Polish film, Alice. Yes, it's incredible. And yes, she gets small and she gets big. Yeah. And if you're into TF and you're not into like macro, micro, you're like, what? Excuse me? Yeah. She just gets small and big. But there's something very potent about the fact that like, sorry, she can't fucking do things because she's very small, or she can't do things because she's very big. And that is... Yes.
Yes. Aptophilia.
It's It's so good. It's so good. Watch that movie. It's Polish.
Polish Alice in Wonderland. Watch it now. Watch it today. Watch it tonight.
I'll find like the link and put it in the show notes or something so that people can go watch it. But yeah, no, I just think like, and I guess this kind of wraps around to so many of our other conversations, like aptophilia very much like permeates a lot of these like kind of changes. And even when we think of something more like basic like Alice in Wonderland with like the changes, it's like, well, maybe it's like, oh, just like human getting bigger or smaller, but like there are TFE vibes that permeate that then play into how the character is interacting with the world around them. And if that isn't TF, well, then I don't know what is, you know, like it's such an important part of it. So, you know, I always think about, you know, thinking back to that sticker, you know, it's like there's so much media that we have around us that we don't even realize necessarily is like quote unquote TF. And I know that sounds kind of like passe, but it's true. Like we think of things that are very basic, be it, for example, you know, like very simple mind changes because of something, and that changes how someone like interacts with the world. That is definitely still transformation. And I feel like one of the things that you've gone to explore with a lot of your different commissions is those kinds of mental changes. So I was curious if you had any thoughts as to how you try to depict those, and also like your general thoughts on mental changes in general as they're depicted in the artwork that you create.
Mental changes are some of the hardest ones because sometimes it involves you need words or at least sound effects. You know, human going to outright dog, like just dog brain, doggy, dog. That's a little easier because you're gonna see it in the face, you're gonna see it in the expression. Suddenly, a big dopey tongue lolling, you know, big-eyed dog expression, and just going bark. You know, there's no person left in that for now. You know, could come back. Maybe it'll come back, but I've found some challenges of character to character or character to some sort of extreme character, and it's all in the eyes, in the expression, in the body language, because you'll go from like human mousy person to big strong, I won't say werewolf, but it's not just about the animalistic part. They want to say make him look confident or make her look like she knows what she's got and she's ready to rock your world. And I'm like, okay, that is not words. So challenging, but very rewarding when you and the client find the right, you know, chef's kiss moment. And I like those. I like that challenge.
Are there any particular mental changes that you like to explore in your personal work?
Yes, but I wasn't prepared to have to think that. They had to know, yeah, a little deeper. In my own personal work, like the work for myself.
For yourself, no other audience.
I like seeing and trying to show someone give over to, I'm going to call it temptation. So it's not that maybe they initially wanted it, but they see that it is what they wanted deep down. And that's really nice to see them to be like, oh, I was missing this in my life, and oh, I will finally actually find confidence. So the TF wasn't initially meant to make that person confident, but they find their confidence through that TF. Yeah.
That's great. I love that, honestly. That's a great fucking trope. And I have seen you like do that, not only just of course with your personal work, but also like with some of the things that have been commissioned from you. And yeah, and which I always think is interesting. And so then I guess my next question is, you know, when it comes to things like mental changes, like obviously you get commissioned for a wide variety of stuff. Is there any kind of like mental changes that you feel like are just like not really in your wheelhouse, or do you feel like you kind of can always take on the, I guess, challenge to some degree of depicting whatever it is that a commissioner might be asking for on that front?
Like with any artist, I have my limitations. I have my will and won't draw list. So I won't bother talking about the things I won't draw because no one commissions me because I don't accept those. So the ones that I do and maybe catch me off guard, not in a bad way, but like, oh, I have never thought of that. I feel like if they can express to me their passion about it, I can have the empathy for it and therefore clearly translate it. Doesn't matter if I would never have thought of it in a million years. If they can share with me why this is it, I'm like, all right, I can draw that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that it's always interesting to see artists like who obviously like outside of course your won't draw list, like exploring topics that maybe wouldn't come to you at first, but then you're like, you know what, I can try that. I can like try this suit on and see, you know, how I can make it fit properly for you. I always think that's kind of interesting.
So, for example, I had never in a million years would have thought that anyone could or would want to turn into clothing. I would never have thought of that.
Where have you been?
But the moment I was exposed, I was like, duh. But I just didn't think it. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. You know, I have been immersed into this community who, you know, thankfully people have thought of these things and have chosen to share with me and asked me to draw. I'm like, oh, of course. Of course. I had no idea. This is brilliant. And shout out, I hope that they do not mind, but shout out to Ty, who has helped me maybe draw some of, like, the most inanimate object TFs and really exposed me to that. And I was like, this is incredible. I would not have known you'd want to be a pepper shaker. Like, you know, right? But it has its charm. And I am so grateful for the clients who do kind of throw the curveball at me. And I'm like, yeah, I got you.
Triangle, do you have anything else to add on that topic? Because I feel like you reacted very strongly to that.
Years ago.
What topic? On the topic of inanimate TF? What?
On clothing.
On clothing specifically. Okay, so there's an intimacy involved, which is attractive, but also a dependency, right? There's an ability to be extremely close to a person. You know, and actually, it's quite different to be. Most of the inanimate TF that I see is related actually to like becoming an object that another person is going to use. It's not anonymous, right? It's not anonymized. It's a specific person, and so it's related to another individual. And I think it's connected to the idea of being completely, basically, used at the whim of another person. That I think it's fucking addictive. It's very interesting, and
What Triangle means to say it's fucking hot.
it's extremely fucking hot.
Listen to Triangle.
It's extremely fucking hot. So I encourage everyone to become clothing.
You heard it here. Everyone, let's turn into some clothing and get really intimate.
So now I'm going to pick on you a little bit. What's your favorite item of clothing to turn into?
Fuck you. Favorite item of clothing? I mean, no, I don't want to say like underwear.
But underwear.
Underwear. It's great. It's too late. I've said it. It's great. It's great. Because what are you gonna do? Where else are you gonna go? What is the most intimate part of a person to kind of like become a part of? Basically, it's that. Well, we're not talking CTF. We're not going there. Please, excuse me. No, we're not gonna do that. But if we're talking clothing, yeah, it's great, and you should like it too. That's it. That's all for me.
I love it. Also, I will always shill CTF, so you know I will be the one to shill that.
That's another story.
That's another story. I'm curious then, are there any topics from our wonderful intimate audience here that you've been waiting for us to maybe explore that we haven't talked about yet? I'm putting y'all on the spot a little bit now, but yeah.
I do. I'm really curious from the artist's perspective on how transformation and leveraging the sort of people's appeals in that transformation plays out and how you plan out the artistic composition of a specific piece. Also including when you're making something specifically for merchandising compared to something for far-away viewing.
So just to be clear, the question is... Sorry. No, I'm trying to paraphrase and now I can't. I'm sorry. Can you just condense it? I am a little inebriated.
So when you're planning out a piece, you have to plan out poses, positioning. If you ever do any background work, you have to plan out that in relation to the model. And I'm just curious how doing something specifically related to transformation, it influences how you do the specific composition for each of your artworks, outside of just literally showing what is being asked of.
I'm not sure this is going to answer exactly, but I am going to jump off from here. I have some clients who I know very well, and I know what they like, and it'll be very different from the next client over. So Some clients really want to see tail bursts. Like, that's their jam. They may not even ask for it, but I know them well enough now that they want it. Some people will ask for lots of rippage in clothing. They don't even have to ask for it. I know they want it. And so when I'm planning out merchandise or just like drawings that I do want to share and entice and, grow the community with, I'll be like, well, I know a good portion like tail bursts. I know a good portion like torn clothing. I know a good portion like happy or excited. I know a good portion like it just like really raw, just a little dark. So I do think I do take all that into consideration. And usually, also, hopefully to answer your question a little bit better, when most clients will come to me and know exactly what they want, and they'll tell me, like, I want to pose up to you, but definitely show the face or definitely show the feet. But they're open to however I do it. And yeah, that plays a big part. And having done it so many times now, I can kind of play with what I think that new client might like and work well with. If they don't, I'm like, well, then you're going to like this next one, and they do. So it has helped also to have drawn a lot of it. A lot. Thousands. That is not an exaggeration. Thousands, literally. And I'm still trying to put together books one day. That's what part of my Patreon is for, to allow me the time to put together the catalogs, backlogs from 2015 onward, hundreds of images a year. So look forward to that.
I'll also add, I don't sell physical merch per se, but to your point around the posing, when I think about it from a photo manipulation perspective, there's usually two kind of tiers or like approaches with images I'll think about. The first is when someone wants like a direct adaptation of a TF piece they've wanted. So I will say, okay, so, we have the image that you'd like to see adapted. Try and, mimic the pose in this way. If this is too challenging, maybe do this other thing with your hand or arm or whatever. The second one is when it's like coming with like a raw concept, and it's like, I want this energy in the piece. I want it to show these emotions. I want to show the tail burst or, the face changing in this way, all those kinds of things. At that point, I will actually then kind of take on like the posing to some degree. I'll be like, all right, so this is kind of what I'm hearing from you. This is the kind of pose that I think you should take. And I actually have like a catalog of like stock poses that I have taken myself, and I'll be like, okay, maybe you want to try something kind of like this, but change X, Y, or Z to get across the emotion or the energy of the piece that you're really aiming for, and this will help to show off the changes as well in a way that makes sense for a photo manipulation. So in those cases, I do have to do a bit more brain racking. I will admit there are some poses I do go back to that I'm like, maybe you want to try something like this. But by and large, I think the energy that the commissioner is looking for is always what kind of dictates the piece. And I think that, and I'm sure this is similar for you, Hornbuckle, like we kind of try to find a way to embody that as best as we can. And of course, part of that also comes with showing works in progress to the commissioner and being like, what do you think of this? It's very different photo manipulation versus drawing because, I've got one picture to start with. I can't like completely change an arm, but I can do what I can try to do and fix it however they may want it to be fixed. And oftentimes I think that it's really just a matter of the commissioner kind of seeing something on paper, and then that helps to get them in their mind, okay, how does this align with what I was mentally picturing and what would need to change in order to bridge that gap? And then we kind of step in as artists to kind of bridge that gap. So, yeah. Do we have any other questions? We're all looking at Professor Scritch.
Oh, sorry, that's microphone is, yeah. So, are there any TF themes that you enjoy that you wish people would commission more of?
Okay, I'm going to go first. Oh. So, I don't have any, like, real, like, hard limits on, like, what I will do for a photo manipulation. I mean, my bread and butter is obviously animal TFs, particularly anthro, but I can do pretty much anything. And one thing that I always find that I wish I had more of was like subjects with more than one, so like 2 subject pieces. And obviously I know this is hard from like a photo manipulation perspective because like you don't necessarily have like someone to be in the picture with you, but you can have like joint people who like, you know, there's 2 separate stock images and then you kind of like stitch them together. And I just like, I never get commissioned for those, and I really wish people did. One, you know, to be like completely frank, I mean, it's a more interesting thing for me to do. And 2, I feel like there's something really intimate with having like 2 people in a transformation picture. And I personally love to see when pictures have those like 2 people in with them. There's just like the interplay between people. You can read so much into like the dynamics at play. You can almost like read what the relationship is between the people based on how they're reacting to one another. And it's just something that's so rare in photo manipulation that it makes me sad. And I really wish I got to do more of that. So I would say that's like the main thing. In terms of like themes more strictly though, I mean, I would love to do more like hypnosis based stuff. I don't really get commissioned for that. Most of the like hypno level kind of stuff has all been in my personal work, which I don't get to do much of lately, but that's another story. So, you know, I would like to see more of that and my like stuff that I'm commissioned for. And I think broadly speaking, like I kind of would like a little bit more of like the like bad and mean stuff, because I do really like it and I don't really get commissioned for that, which is fine. Like I love doing like the validating happy TF pieces or like just the like standard surprised TF pieces, but like let's get some horror in here, y'all, you know? Like I want to make something that makes people be like, oh fuck, that's scary. So
I'll just jump right off of that. That you mentioned the horror, and again, remember, I'm not super dark, but what I do like and love, and I will just probably almost automatically, as long as you qualify in other ways, say yes to a commission that involves werewolves. I know it's basic bitch TF, but it's classic TF, and it's my first love. And for the dark part, someone having a tough time with it. It doesn't have to be, oh boy, I'm turning into a werewolf. It can be gritty. It can be dark. It could be like scratching and tearing, and you know, and I'm all for it. And I feel like I can explore the darker side a little bit easier with werewolves, because werewolves have been the darker side for me. Other than that, though, on the light side, I would love to draw more ponies. Anyone want me to draw some ponies? I will draw TF ponies. I love ponies. I love My Little Pony. I know the pony fandom itself, you kind of want to, you know, say a little, you know, it's kind of, you know, but I was endeared by those designs, and they're such sweet, cute designs. It's my sugar. It's sweetness, is pure sweetness. So if you got a pony TF, you most likely might automatically get on the list for that. Hypno's good. You mentioned Hypno, and I used to get a lot of people ask for Hypno, and it's really dropped off, and I don't know why. It's good. Horse TFs, again, I get pretty commissioned for that pretty frequently, but you know, again, horse TFs. I'm making a list for anyone listening. Like, if you want to commission Hornbuckle, werewolves, and that can be dark and gritty. If you want some sugary lightness, please, My Little Pony. And I always say yes to horse TFs, especially draft horse TFs. Love myself some draft horse. Lions and tigers.
And bears.
And I was about to say and bears. Oh my. And themes. Anything within that. Yeah. That's my list. That's commission me.
I support this. Also, so I will just add on to the werewolves, you know, and you know, to make sure we hit our explicit rating for this episode, I will just say, when it comes to werewolves, there's just so many like cool tropes you can explore for werewolf initiation. I know I got a commission from Anger Boda of me getting railed into a werewolf pack, and I'm just saying it's great. So, you know, I'm just saying.
What you're saying is, it's fucking hot.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's fucking hot. So, you know, I do love werewolves, and I think we all need more art of werewolves. So, yeah.
And I actually do not say for work art. So if anyone wants to be railed into a werewolf, just, you know, hit me up. And also, I highly suggest you hit up Zill for being railed into a werewolf, because you and your partner can pose for this photo manip, and finally we can have the 2-person werewolf banging hotness that we need.
I would love to do that. That would be like my dream project. Hit me up. Fuck your partner into werewolf, y'all. It's the truest form of love.
That's going in the podcast.
That's going in the podcast. I would joke that's the cold open, but we already have the mystery fish. So, Did anyone else have any other questions?
Would you say that your interest in TF kind of like helped you express or discover some of your own like queerness?
Wow.
Yes. That's a brilliant question. I did feel more open once I actually started my transition, and having helped people with their transition via drawing TF to help them see themselves, I was like, and I already got it before, but then when I felt it in myself, I was like, yes, okay, I feel this. And from there, I have grown and blossomed. I am way more confident and happy in my life that I do find the wonderful queer joy even more so in it while drawing it and exploring it for myself. Thank you for that question, Zach.
I will also say that, particularly when I was growing up, I knew from a young age that I was not straight. And I kind of dove into various different labels. And it's kind of comical when I think back on it, how, I was on like TF spot, which is like, for those who know, like the grungiest spot for like TF art, making like bad photoshops of like two guys from a porn. And I'm totally not queer. It's like, whatever. I just like to be that guy. And it's like, oh, honey. So, I definitely think that transformation helped me on that front as well. I've spoken at length about how it's influenced my own gender journey, but like one thing I think in particular that I always hammer home about transformation, and to harp a little bit on psychology, given our illustrious presence here, I think that one of the interesting things about transformation is it kind of allows for our like minds and synapses to open up these new possibilities as to how we conceptualize ourselves. And, I think one of the cool things about transformation is that no matter where you start, I think the person that you are when you come out the end of it is always like changed in a way. And I am saying that for the pun, but also like I do genuinely mean like you come out of it changed. And sometimes that includes grappling with one's own queerness. And sometimes it just like, it can touch on so many other things. Like it can touch on, one's body image. It can touch on, someone's like self-actualization. Being able to, as I mentioned before, like hold to like images of oneself in their mind and be like, I acknowledge that I have these things that maybe I don't always like to express, but I can also still be the person I want to like idealize myself as. And so, I think my own queerness really was tied to grappling with my own self-image and being able to see myself in these positions that I never had experienced before as of yet, or even just like kind of like idealizing myself in. It really did help me to settle into an identity that I felt more confident in, as like you said, Hornbuckle. And so, I think that is a beautiful element of transformation. And I think it's beautiful that it doesn't necessarily have to touch on queerness. It can just be about, how you conceptualize yourself, period, and like where you are right now and where you want to be. So obviously I read into it a very like queer text reading because of how it's affected me and how it's affected a lot of my friends, but it can be so much more than that, and I think that's what truly makes it transcend so many different boundaries. Like it can really affect anyone from any background in any place in the world. And I know this sounds like hunky-dory, but I do mean it, like genuinely. I think it does have that kind of an impact on people. And what is a fandom if not something that changes all the people within it? Again, I know I'm making the pun, but like I do mean that seriously, so yeah, I'm going to be corny now.
I'm not sure why you're handing it back to me because I think we answered the questions. Should I stall while you think of another question?
No, I was curious. I was curious if you have any particular questions, maybe for the audience or for myself, Hornbuckle.
All of you have personas. So I want your name and your persona, what they are, and just a brief. Triangle's making a face that says, I can't do brief. So maybe I'll let Triangle go last. Because that interests me, because they're all very personal. Personas are personal.
So it's name, persona, and why we picked it, or? Okay, so everyone's heard this one a lot. So I'm actually going to like list a few of them. So my name is Zill. Hi, everyone. In case you didn't know me, I run a podcast. Yeah. So my main Lombax. My main Sona is a Lombax. I've talked about it at length, but I really do feel like Ratchet's journey is very much like a queer found family story, and I think that's really beautiful, and I don't think that's necessarily what the writers did when they created him, but I don't give a fuck. That's how I'm going to read it. So he's mine to read how I want him to. I love him. So that was always like the big read-in for me, and like, they have big ears, they have long tails, all the great stuff. I have 2 alts. One is a dragon, which honestly I kind of like read a lot of my horny energy into, so that's kind of like a vessel for that to some degree. Also, like the dragon Sona that I have is a mixture of like Eastern and Western influences, which I think is really cool because basically I'm an indecisive Libra bitch, and I was like, I like both. I don't want to pick, so I'm just gonna have both. So whatever. So that's great. And like the color scheme is like black and magenta, which I think is very gay. So we love that. And then the other one I have is a snow leopard, and one of the things I really like about that one, snow leopard is a Sona species that I considered when I initially was like thinking about like Lombax and settled on Lombax, that I've come back to since, because I was like, I don't need to have a limit on how many Sonas I want to have. Like, fuck anyone who says otherwise. But like, not just like the fluffiness, and I love their tails and their pattern and everything, but like that Sona in particular, I view as like kind of like a warm, kind of confident and comforting kind of character. And I think it's really interesting to have multiple Sonas in which you kind of express multiple elements of the self, because we're all multifaceted. So I kind of view the snow leopard as a way to embody that like calmness and like warmth and reassuring to other people as well as myself. And I kind of use that as a kind of form to present myself in those situations. And also, like, again, I'm a big cat. Like, at the end of the day, like, I have cat energy. It's just very strong. So, of course, one of my alts was going to be a cat. So, anyways.
Hello, this is Ornero the Owl, hooting in. So, when it comes to the origin of my persona, why I chose it, you can either look at what actually happened or the psychoanalysis after the fact. What happened was that I stumbled upon the character, I liked it, and I was like, yes. Well, when we psychoanalyzed my choice for like a bird, owl specifically, I knew I wanted to make a bird. Birds have always stood out to me because during the roughest periods of my life, 2020 onwards, I always look towards the birds outside as a sort of serenity, a calm, all of creation is right type moment. And so with that fostered a dear love for birds. And so when I'm creating a persona, naturally I want to dip into the idealism, the idyllic, in terms of how I express myself and how people will view me. Because ultimately, persona also changes how everyone else views you, especially if they know you only online. And now for the owl, I am very happy to say it was not the bigot magic school books that did it. In fact, I actually stumbled upon that just because I was choosing bird faces, and I liked the owl because there's the flat face primarily, and the ability to express with it and have patterns and whatnot. If you ever look at my persona, I have swirls and dots on there, which is partially based off the little tribal dudes from Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. And also something that looks aesthetically appealing. Yeah. And so when I was designing it, the very first thing in mind was, how can I make the... I was designed for a specific experience. How can I make a character that can be vored as pleasantly as possible? Can I say I like chicken? No.
He had a goal and he knew what it was.
And so, I baked in a way for him to magically unsummon his wings because I figured that would be unpleasant. And I was originally gonna make him wingless, but why choose when you can have both? And honestly, I think that's a pretty good way to describe transformation. Why choose if you can have all of it?
Hi, my name is Zach Loop, and my persona is also named Zach, which is lame, but I'll get to that in a second. So I chose just a regular plain-ass wolf originally because I first started becoming a furry when I was watching an anime called Wolf's Rain way back in 2003. Clearly, some other people resonated with that.
Yes, bitch, yes.
So, part of my queer awakening was that I started role-playing as a wolf. Of course, like in that, it's not quite TF, but they have like forms that are like human forms, but they're not really human forms. It's a whole thing. You have to watch the show. Anyways, so I started role-playing as this like wolf character who also had a human form, and I slowly just abandoned that, and I was like, it's just a wolf. And part of that was because I started to, before I even knew I was trans, I liked that this character didn't have to have like boobs, it didn't have to adhere to womanhood, it could just be a freaking wolf. And eventually I kind of like, well, at the time obviously I had a different name, and I started cosplaying as Zach Fair from Final Fantasy VII, and that's how I chose my name Zach when I came out as trans. So my persona inherited that name long before I actually even was going as trans. I was just like, oh yeah, my name is this, but my persona's name is Zach. Real sly of me. And then I put away my main persona for a while after going through something traumatic. We're not going to get into that. And I created a secondary persona named Charlie, who is a coyote, and he is a pirate, and he represents, well, he's not quite a pirate, but we're just going to call him a pirate. He just kind of represents, like, you know, almost like the dark side of my personality, like exploring, you know, the mischievous and the chaotic, because coyotes have that mischievous, chaotic energy. But now he's become a bit of a happier character now that I'm in a better place, and he's still kind of mischievous and chaotic, but in a positive way and not in an unhinged way. Anyway, so I brought back my main persona, Zach, about 2 years ago after giving him like a good 6-year hiatus, and I changed him from a generic basic bitch black wolf into a Florida black wolf, which is actually an extinct species of wolf that used to live in Florida that not very many people know about, but I thought it was cool because I was born in Florida, so I thought it'd be fun to like make my character this like little tiny piece of Florida history that no longer exists. And that's the story of my guy.
My persona is Professor Scritch. Professor Scritch is a psychology professor. I'm a psychology professor. And Professor Scritch is really a idealized version of myself in a lot of ways, someone I aspire to. I get like 500 emails a day. Professor Scritch is kind of an old school academic who can just sit down and think and smoke his pipe. And he's a beagle, I should mention as well. And kind of just as a beagle, just happy-go-lucky, really kind of very gentle, very kind, and kind of the type of person I want to be. It's a kind of an academic idealization of what the job is, and also someone I aspire to be, someone who's always kind, who's always helping people, and always kind of trying to please people. It's that my dog nature of kind of just trying to please people and kind of making people happy. And that's really what Professor Scritch is for me, just an idealized version of what I aspire to be.
That was so short. Are you sure that's it?
There are a lot of other things. I used to be a wolf. So I used to be a wolf when I was a graduate student, was an undergraduate, and even back high school and before that, I used to be a Therian. I mean, I was a Therian. I may be still a Therian type of person, very kind of wolf-oriented. But then I got married and I became domesticated, and that's when I switched to a beagle.
That's so sweet. I love it. Oh my God, that's so sweet.
That makes my career smile. Yes, mine too.
I'm sighing deeply again.
You had so much time to think of it.
I know you. It made it worse. It made me more nervous. I have one because I didn't have a Sona until. I still don't have a Sona. I have one proto Sona who may be a Sona for the past like 3 or 4 months or so, who basically is a sign spinner. It's a way I view myself, essentially. Their name is Emil. Basically, it's sort of this sort of like cyberpunk universe of them basically being a walking fucking advertising billboard, basically just representing all the other shit besides themselves. And I don't know, something about like the sort of like dystopian dimension, but also like visually speaking, very fucking cool. Like you can do so much with that. And the idea being that basically powered off, just fucking regular old whatever, like kind of a white cat type situation, and powered on, fucking fiber optic, like white, just completely energized only when resonating the things that other people are sort of broadcasting through it. So still sort of working on that, working with a few different artists and sort of like visualizing that. I don't know, but it's fun. It's fun to, I guess, embrace like something that is so visually open to interpretation. Like there's so many different ways, right, of like visualizing a character who's depicted like that it's interesting. So that's That's number one for me. I'm jealous of all you motherfuckers who have like 3 or 4. Like, oh, I've got like 5 different sonas. This is like my sona.
I think you're just impersonating Zilda's.
Is this?
I was going to say, I think you're calling me out right now, and that's fine. What I will just say to that is you need to get on my level, okay?
Yes, I agree.
But I do love that concept. I think that's really cool. And, like, there's something very deep that resonated with that one sentence you said of, like, you know, being anything but yourself, which, okay, we're reading everyone here right now, you know? Yeah, welcome to group therapy. My name is Zill. I'm your group therapist. That's what this podcast is. No, I'm kidding.
Join the TFTuesday Patreon, and you too could join in group therapy.
Yes.
Triangle says you can do this, so you should.
It's $5 a month. Or more. It's definitely more. You should definitely pay more.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, I just realized I didn't do mine. Okay, Hornbuckle. And my sona's name is Hornbuckle. And I do have a real name. Some of you know it. I don't mind you don't know, but I'm not going to put it on the podcast. You don't need to know it. I am HB Hornbuckle, or God to you as far as I am concerned. You're concerned. I said that phrase wrong. I'm not very godly. Anyway.
HB Lovecraft.
HB Lovecraft.
More
Racist motherfucker. Move on.
No, HP Lovecraft was racist. I thought you were calling me HB Lovecraft.
More cosmic horror without the racism.
Exactly. A little more sugar. Yeah. Not HP like the Lovecraft. Anyway. I will not get into the various forms I had. I did not start off as a unicorn. It is not important to me because I have shed my skin like I have done in real life, and I have realized I am the unicorn because I always made other people unicorns in my life, and I finally put myself first and realized I'm the fucking unicorn in this world.
I love that. And I love you putting yourself first. Hell yeah. Record that applause.
For the record. Let's get that.
Very good. Very good. Triangle continues to be the loudest member of the audience. Yes, I'm calling you out on recorded form. It's okay. We love you.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite podcast? No wrong answers.
Okay, so I'm not going to be a narcissist here because I actually do like a different podcast. So as much as I love my own podcast, I have to edit it. And so I could never truly have it be my favorite one because I have to listen to it 4 or 5 times every episode. Hence why I remember things like episode numbers because I'm like, I sat through that for 5 fucking hours. So I will say that one of my favorite podcasts, and I know this is a basic bitch answer. Please don't at me. I do love The Daily. I listen to it pretty much every single fucking day. I know the New York Times has a lot of problems, so I'm not giving them money, so I feel like my conscience is clean. But, you know, something I really like about The Daily is I am very much the kind of person who consumes a lot of news. I think personally, I find it empowering to read more of the news. I don't fall into like despair spirals or anything like that because in my mind, knowledge is power. So I will consume as much knowledge as I have and use that in any way that I can. And I think that The Daily in particular will highlight very specific issues that I'm interested in hearing about. And I don't necessarily agree with all the fucking things they say on that podcast, let me be clear. But I, at the very least, will hear another point of view into whatever the topic is, and then I can form my own opinion. And I think that's really important for any podcast you listen to, including this one. Like, always form your own opinion on the topic. You're hearing one point of view from, like, you know, a specific person, but that doesn't mean that you can't build off of that and make your own opinion and develop something new in your mind. So yeah, I would say The Daily is probably my favorite podcast. I'll also give like another one a shout out. I do like Today Explained by Vox. They're also pretty great. Sometimes they cover the same topic on the same day as The Daily, and then it's actually really interesting because then I'll listen to the next one and I'll be like, okay, they're approaching it from a slightly different way. Usually with more of like a leftist-ish kind of perspective, which I appreciate. But anyways, but yeah, I would say Daily's my favorite. Today Explained, honorary mention.
TF Tuesday. Is my favorite podcast. Triangle, what is your favorite podcast and why is it TF Tuesday?
It's TF Tuesday because every Tuesday I know that I have something that I can listen to that's going to make me TF.
Woo! Woo! Yes.
This is
Oh, wait.
literally the only podcast I listen to.
From Professor Scritch.
You should too. Sometimes I will drive home at the wrong hour just so I can have a longer commute so I can finish the podcast.
That's love right there.
Y'all are gonna make me cry.
I love it.
Can we hear you cry? Can you cry on microphone?
No, don't make me cry on.
We're gonna build you
Listen.
We'll work you up to it.
Listen, I used to act.
Big fucking
And-
cry, motherfucker. Oh my god, you're doing audible.
It's really mean of you to make me do this. Because, listen, I won an Oscar in another life, okay? And it's really hard for me right now to do this. So I'm going to pass this. I can't.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That was beautiful. Zach Loop, what is your favorite podcast and why is it TF Tuesday?
Well, this is the only podcast that I've ever been honorarily mentioned in, so that is why.
A valid reason.
But also, this is my first time discovering it, so from now on, I'll definitely listen in.
Woo! We made a new fan.
I appreciate your honesty.
What? This is Wait a second. Are we recording a podcast right now?
This just in.
Hanging out.
This just in.
Just talking into a microphone like we always do.
Oh, yeah.
Triangle is slowly coming off of the mushrooms and finally has realized that we are doing. Don't mind that. Their soul is melting. Ornero, what is your favorite podcast and why is it TF Tuesday?
So, you know what? Honest to God, I might be able to answer this unironically because TF Tuesday is very high up there. Because when it comes to podcasts, one of the most important things is that they have something really interesting to say. And the amount of introspection and deep thought that comes into what, on the surface, might seem like a shallow subject. There's so much depth I would have never imagined existing within the TF community. Because I've come from outside the TF community for 99.999% of my life. And so any Kink Thinkosphere podcast, when it really delves into the psychology, into the appeal, and even in this case, the very human aspect of the community, and also as a good interviewer, so.
Thank you. I will say, first of all, the point of this podcast is always to teach us how to be more human, which I think is deeply ironic. But also, this podcast is the sum of its parts, and not only is it all of the wonderful guests who get to come on, a big part of it is my co-host, Kay Libra. We love you, Kay Libra. Yeah.
We love you, K-Libra!
Go Kay Libra!
And I would be remiss not to mention him. Also, our amazing editor who doesn't get enough love, Levi Irisher, who you probably won't find online, but he does a lot of good work for editing the podcast. So, MVP. True MVP. And yeah, just all the incredible guests who have come on the show and helped out over the years. I mean, we've had like 3 seasons of the show, which is like fucking insane to me. I can't believe that. But yeah, it's so much of it comes from just having incredible guests on and having audience participation. I mean, we have the audience questions at the end of our episodes for a reason, and I find that that's another example of how the TF community enriches the podcast. So I really do appreciate everyone who listens and contributes through the Patreon or through comments or just listening. Like, even if you aren't contributing, like if you're just listening, that makes me happy because I see your little view go on my little Anchor dashboard and I'm like, oh, someone else listened to it today. That makes me very happy because I'm that kind of a person who like obsessively tracks statistics because that's where my engineering brain goes. But anyways, well, I think that's everything we had to cover for today. If people are interested in finding you, Hornbuckle, besides, for the rest of the convention, where can they find you?
You can find me at artbyhornbuckle.com. And on my website, I have links to all of my social media and art galleries and other places you can find me. You can also find me at transform.patreon.com. That Patreon is being dedicated to being a income where a rescue draft horse can find their forever home next spring. That is my plan. So please join. We do lots of fun things, giveaways, suggestions and polls and TF prompts, and all of it's going to a great cause. Every penny goes straight towards saving up for the draft horse rescue and for then their long-term forever home maintenance care. So please join me there. And if you are a fan of Twitter, no, I'm just kidding. No one's a fan of Twitter. But if you are having to be a slave to Twitter, you can find me there as well at Art by Hornbuckle. Give me a follow. Thank you so much, Zil.
Thank you for coming on. And one more person I just want to mention before I forget, because, I also want to shout out Honey Bear, who helped with the visuals. It was a collaborative project between Kay Libra and Honey Bear, and I just want to shout out both of them for that. They helped us redo the visuals for season 3, and I would be remiss not to mention them. So a big thank you to both of them for the visuals as well. So, yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you had as much fun listening as we all did recording. Special thank you to our very live and interactive audience here at FWA. I can say that this has already been the highlight of my first FWA. Obviously, nothing's going to top this. And, FWA, call me next time. Please, put me on the schedule, because we have a good time. So, next time I'm here, maybe consider that. But you'll catch me around at AC if you're coming to Anthrocon. I will be there, and I will be running things. So, in the meantime, as always, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. And I just want to say, as always, I hope that you all have a great week. I hope that you all stay hydrated, get some good sleep, keep an open mind, and stay TFE. And I will see you all again.
And yes, the animals are dirty.
The animals are dirty. Thank you so much, everyone.
Woo.